Um, I'm Tuhon Leo and I've been with Atienza since 1993.
I'm Tuhon Stephen Bowman. Been with the system since 2003.
So, yeah, I mean, just give you a little background on myself. I've done martial arts way before that, and I think that I've done pretty much the same journey that a lot of like the guys have done. It's like I got into it probably because of 3 o'clock afternoon kung fu films, and then Saturday afternoon films. And I went first like try to find kung fu, but really ended up doing taekwondo. If you didn't do taekwondo, you're doing karate. I was doing taekwondo, and really kind of went more into like when I started going into college, and I was already doing taekwondo, and then one of my instructors, some other guy came in, and he says, "Oh, I don't know if that would work on me," and he tried a front kick and then unbeknownst to us, this guy was a kickboxer, and he ended up breaking that taekwondo's instructor's toe because he just like put his knee up. So he checked it. He checked the front kick like that and broke the guy's toe. And I was like, right away I went over to that guy like, "How'd you do that?" So I was pretty much doing that quite a bit. Like every time I would train with somebody, I would do something and then spar other guys. And then back then it was a lot of empty hand stuff. And I would spar other guys, and I even met like a great through one of my many connections, I met a guy that was with the Triads, and he was a Puerto Rican guy actually that was recruited by the Triads, and he was brought over like all the time to Hong Kong to do like tournaments, like probably underground tournaments. And he was whatever he was doing, I was training with him for a while, and I think for me it just happened like I wasn't, I was from a good background. I don't have a broken home or anything. I was like the neighborhood. For us, I'm probably second generation in a non-Asian community, so therefore I face the same kind of like difficulties that that minorities have, like facing racism, and not just from from everyone, from everywhere, and and kind of like having to just stand up for yourself. I wouldn't say I was fighting a lot then. I was just like trying to stand up for myself. But eventually, we moved out, and we saw stuff, crazy stuff, but at the same time, it was just normal, right? Seeing what I think back, everything was calm until I kind of fell into a little bit of a rough crowd in my college years, and that's where that really started me on my martial arts, Filipino martial arts journey with Atienza, where we fell into a rough crowd, and they were always fighting. We were always in pool halls, and when we were fighting, they weren't fighting. People were not fighting just fist fighting. There was fist fighting, but people were fighting with weapons, like pool cues, projectiles. Occasionally the gun comes out. We had a good friend of mine die that way at a pool hall. I was actually on my way there, and he got shot up. Traumatized my sister because she was there waiting for me at the time. But so those things were happening, so in my mind, I was already doing all these empty hand stuff, but because there was so much fighting with weapons, I thought I should learn a martial art that involves weaponry. And then the first thing that really pops into my head back then was that fighting martial art with the sticks, and I studied, and and it just happened to be Filipino. I'm Filipino, perfect, So I was like, let me go into that, and so I started researching that. But at the same time, the crowds I was kind of coming along with, they ran parallel to all these other crowds, right? And one of the parallel crowds was I was always hearing about these three brothers, And back then I didn't know who they were, just these three brothers. Like, and this one crew I knew, which was from Queens, they were always talking about these three brothers. Like, they're like martial artists from when they were young, and they're unstoppable. Like, the youngest was like, he knocked down a brick wall with just punches, and I was just like, okay. And it would literally go through that kind of phase of like seeing that, until I actually met up with them probably in 92, 93. Right now, he's the one always training, so you should meet up with him. And we met up, and I'm sure Tuhon Carl will tell you some story about how we met up, and it was like, it was definitely anomalies.
He had a gun.
There's definitely anomalies that were happening at that time frame, But we met up and we made it like, hey, let's meet up, and I'll come by to start some training, right? So for me, I went up and met him. We were down in Union Square, around that area, and first of all, I meet his father, and his father Butch, and Butch is like just asking me some basic questions, and then he's like, he calls his son down, he calls Carl down. I think Tuhon Carl was probably sleeping at the time, maybe, and taking a nap, because he comes down and his hair's a mess. Yeah. And I remember it's still summer, but he's in a tank top, and back then I was always wearing like black turtlenecks, even in the summer. So weird. But like, so I had that, but then like, he was like, oh, I want you to hit my son. And I was like, oh, there's not going to be like, he's going to do something. I was like, no, just try to hit him. And I was like, well, okay, with what? He's like, whatever, And I was like, can I hit him with this? And I pulled out a pipe, I'm like, well, probably 15-inch pipe. And I said, can I hit him with this? And they're like, okay. So I, back then, you tell me to hit somebody, and I think I actually still do this in my own teaching. Like, I just hit you. I'm not going to pull it. I'm not trying to kill you, but I'm trying to get to you. And I tried to get to Tuhon Carl, and even back then, like, I remember it was like a magic trick, because I had the pipe. I had, this guy just, I met him before, I heard about him, but he literally like had his hair messy. He was like tank top, shorts, and like just kind of waking up. And I was like, all right, I'm not gonna kill him, but I'm definitely gonna give him a knot. So I was like, I'm gonna take a swing at him. I swung at his head, and like, it was like magic. It just, he wasn't there anymore. And then he's on me, and I'm like, and his father let me do it a couple of times, and like from then on, I was just like, that was like a magic trick, because I thought I was gonna kill the guy, and now he stopped everything. And like, it wasn't long. It wasn't like it was short. Like, I took like maybe 3 swings, and then that was like, all right, that's enough. And he's like, all right, you can come back and train. And I was like, oh, okay. So that was pretty cool. So back then, like, at that time, like, they gave me a trial class, like a trial program class. That's how that they explained it to me. It was like 3 months of like training, 3 months of training, and we'll see how it goes from there, right? Because I was still running with some bad crews, and they wanted to make sure, like, and throughout that whole time, they're always telling me, especially their father was always like, hey, you gotta stop doing that. And like, I remember being sat down near the end of the 3 months, and he was like saying, listen, like, if you want to continue, you gotta stop hanging out, right? So a bunch of things happened and then eventually I did stop hanging out because of that. But that's how I started. Like, I started a 3-month program, and it's really, it's the base stuff. Like, it was 3 months of stick work. It was 3 months of stick work, and we were doing like, I trained with him, and he trained with like guys that he brought in. It was usually just him, his father, sometimes his brother. Tuhon Bong would come by, Tuhon B would come by every once in a while, but it was always his father was there watching, and then we would be training, right? And we would do a lot of drills, but then right away we'd start like hitting and punching and like doing like more application stuff. And I would always remember bringing back stuff that I would see on the street, and I would tell them like, hey, I was doing this, or I saw this, like, like, how would we deal with this? And and it was always like, let's run it, let's do it, let's run that application on it, right? So I saw this bouncer like like dress a guy, like take their blouse a guy, take their shirt over, and then just like start like how like what do you do with that? And they're like, it was a whole bunch of doing that, and then eventually when there's like more people, it was always like it was always like multiple people hitting you, and now that was like more like this is what I like. And I remember at the end, even after I finished the 3-month program, they gave me a test. The test was an empty hand versus I'm empty hands, and the Tuhon had a pipe. He had a knife, and then he also did empty hand, like punches and kicks. And I had to. It's interesting because that first test that Tuhon gave me is like the basis of what we consider the tense now. Like it's just somebody kind of going like, they're not trying to counter, they're not trying to spar, they're just trying to take your head off, or they're trying to stab you, and then you just have to not get you can't get hit, and you have to survive. Well, back then we didn't have any of the safety equipment, so when they're trying to hit me, if you got hit, if Tuhon had hit me on that first test, he would have like put me in the hospital because that was a pipe, and then the knife part was like that was a real blade at the end, So, but and what happened was like, and it wasn't like one of those where he stays there and he does this. Like this guy's running from across the room and he punches you, and that was like that happens all the time. Like people are always running and punching, and like they didn't stay there and run. But that being said, we were running. So that was the interesting thing. Like back then, we were also running these drills that we would do, but we would do the drills. But then afterwards, when we sat down to actually do stuff that we were seeing on the street, they were not anything from the drills. It was not. It didn't look anything like these like in and out drills, like, or recycling drills. It was straight like, if this guy's running across the room and he's throwing a haymaker at you. He's coming across the room. The door opens and the guy kicks the door in, and this guy's like coming in to shank you. So we were doing a lot of that, and